Hello, ladies and gentlemen of YouTube, and welcome to another episode of Fanalysis, Avatar: The Last Airbender. I am Retty4, this is Greyjohner91,
Hey guys.
and this is Antoine Bandelay.
Be water, my friends.
Introduce us to the episode, Matt.
Okay, so last episode I incorrectly referred to the episode's title as just the Spirit World. It's more accurately referred to as Winter Solstice Part 1, the Spirit World. This is Winter Solstice Part 2, Avatar Roku. In the previous episode, Aang sort of encountered his past life for the first time and received a vision that hints at his destiny and duty as the Avatar. But he needs a lot more clarification on that, and to do that, he needs to travel to the Fire Temple, which is in the Fire Nation, and that's what this episode is about. Taking us away for specific points, Antoine.
Yeah, it starts off with a cool character moment from Aang that he wants to shovel off because he doesn't want to put Sokka and Katara in danger, because he's like, okay, if I'm about to go to the Fire Nation, like deep in there, and like talk to Roku or something, I'm not gonna have my friends come with me. So it's one of those moments. But it's very funny that, Callan, you had a very similar note to me that the beginning is very expository.
Yeah,
where it's just like
more than any other episode.
Like a two-parter, like a kids show two-parter, where it's like, oh, maybe they forgot, they didn't watch last week because it was a two-parter. Let's explain, previously on Avatar.
Yeah,
let's have the characters say that.
More than any other episode, you just feel like, okay, exposition. Okay, every line, this is just explaining what they already know. But I can forgive it because mostly forgive it because the reason this is happening here is because they have so much to get through just to get to the starting point of what will be the episode as a whole. So you can kind of forgive it for its sloppiness here a bit. And again, it is the first time they've had a two-parter, so it's rehashing what we already know from the previous episode. But they could have done it better because it stood out so much compared to the natural description and exposition we've had thus far, and even in the previous episode.
In this scene does kind of happen like in everything ever, where like they're like, okay, we're going on a dangerous journey, but I don't want to put my friends or loved ones in danger, so you can't come. Well, we're coming anyway. Like, it happens in everything ever. So even though it's not even like necessarily poorly done, it's just kind of been there, done that.
Yeah, it's been
at the start anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, but tropes work for a reason. They work for a reason.
Yes, they do. And again, this is obviously going to be someone's first as well, especially considering it is a kids show of the scale it is. Right. But it just does stand out. It does stand out compared to what we've seen thus far and what we'll see to come.
Also, we get confirmation that, yes, it's called Crescent Island.
Yes,
we were like, is it called Roku's Island? Is it Crescent Island? But yes, the villager confirms that to us.
They're two different islands, though. They're two different islands.
But yeah, there are. Roku's Island is his own island that he lived on, and Crescent Island is where he had his last stand and died.
It may just
the confusion in last episode where we derailed talking about that.
Yeah, it may just be that the guy referred to it as that because he was described as, and it doesn't really have a name, because even later on in the episode they don't refer to it as that. It's, oh look, it's the island I saw. But yeah, we'll take this as confirmation. It's Crescent Island.
But I thought it was kind of weird when the guy like gives him the gift, or gives Aang the gift, and then like he says "go" or whatever. Like, I felt like that was weird. I don't know if that happened for you guys, but I just thought that was an awkward moment.
I think it's because of the time limit.
That was the writer saying we must end this banter now. It was like, move on with the plot. Like, that's exactly what that was to me.
It's like, all right, enough exposition.
Also, it does emphasize the time limit because they have just a day to get there.
True. That's true. You're right about that. But it also establishes who that guy is again. Like, again, in case you missed the prior episode, because the reason why Zuko knows where Aang is going is because he interrogated that guy. So, like, if you just bounced into the episode without, like, realizing who that is or being reminded, it might be weird.
Yeah, that's true.
Or if you just don't pay attention. So it was, like, helpful in that way.
Yeah, which then takes us to the next scene where Zuko does kind of presumably torture the information out of this relatively Avatar or pro-Avatar guy in a bit of a brutal scene where he just sort of kicks open, or kicks the guy through the door, doesn't he? If I recall correctly. Yeah, but again, this is where I made a note saying that the swift transitions of the early scenes, it goes cut to get to the point where, okay, chase begins, episode properly opens. I mean, I feel like they could have almost just started straight away with the rushing away on Upper and first seeing Zuko finding them, because it is a kind of noticeable cut from that to the actual episode as a whole, unlike the other previous introductions from other episodes where they flow better.
The cool part of this episode too, I feel like it converges the storylines of Zuko and Aang like right off the bat. Because usually we have to wait for that until like the end of the episode. But right at the start, right at the jump, when it's like Zuko gets the information very quickly. They're flying with Appa, and he's got his ship like right underneath him, and like the whole episode is like a parallel plot of those two versus waiting like okay A plot B plot, and then at the end of the episode they converge. It's kind of like all the same.
They even have the same obstacles by and large. You know, they're facing the same threats at the same time. Yeah.
Zhao and the temple, the temple guard sages as they call themselves.
Yeah, Zuko kind of had them in his corner because he's the Fire Prince, but yeah, definitely Zhao for sure.
And I like the attachment of conflict. You know, we all understand what each of them is dealing with. Like Zuko, we know, or we get the from Iroh, hey, you can't come back, you're banished. You know, you'll be arrested. But at the same time, you understand Zuko's motivation because he's like, well, my whole thing is to get the Avatar. If he's there, I have to, you know, go past that banishment to get him. You know, I'm pretty sure if my father lets me capture this guy, I'll be forgiven, even if I'm supposed to be there.
It's a lot of.
Which is kind of the first. It's kind of the first. It's kind of the first hint at Ozai's personality because of Iroh's comments afterward, where it's like, I don't think so.
Yeah.
You know.
My brother is not the understanding type.
Right.
You give him too much credit. But I also like how they do a really good job of a single shot of expressing Iroh's concern. Like this is the first time we see him really worried for Zuko in like such a blunt manner, and he's like, you know, what if you're caught? You know, think, please, I'm begging you. You know, it's like you see the love he has for his nephew and the severity of the threat in this moment for him and Aang.
Yeah, and even his worry just for Ozai and the way he's speaking about Ozai, which is something he talks about too later on in book 3. You really understand, okay, Ozai is like someone you don't mess with, even though we don't really get the full effect of him until at the very, very end. You understand just from like Iroh's dialogue, like, yeah, like Ozai is not like someone you just like. I don't do jokes with Ozai. My brother doesn't.
Yeah, he is not a funny guy.
But also with the Aang, or the gang, I should say, they also have the conflict of, well, we have to get here at a certain time because we have to hit Roku during the winter solstice. So like everything is on a timer, and conflict I think works best when that's the case. And when each character has their own thing. The only one who doesn't really have a timer really is Zhao, but when everyone has that, it helps make the conflicts converge very, very well.
Tension.
Elevates the tension.
A lot of tension.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's exactly it. And it's the same with the following episodes as well, but we'll get to them. But yeah, the actual, the kind of cinematic assault against the blockade that they run into with Zhao as an obstacle in the way was very cinematic. You know, Appa's flight in particular, I really felt the kind of what's the word? Like you kind of felt like you were there as it flew through the air. You felt Appa's literal weight in the airflow, and we also see a lot of speed that we haven't seen before from him when Sokka falls from his back. It was really well done. The whole kind of even the camera shot side of things, I enjoyed the sequence.
It was very well storyboarded.
Yeah, and I really like how Aang, when he gets powerful, it's always in defense of someone. It's never overt thing. So like when they shoot that fireball stone thing, catapult at him, you see him like, you know, get ready for it and do that air kick that just like obliterates the rock and everything. And it's like you only really see that from Aang. We all see it. I think it's in this season too. Is this the season where he stops the volcano?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yeah. So we only see that kind of thing when it's in the defense of someone. We never actually see him like go full on like as powerful as he can be until it's something like that. It's like, oh man, like Appa's gonna get obliterated like Sokka. Like he could just go off and fly and he's cool, but you know, he's like, I can help my friends see.
Yeah, he rises to the occasion, but what makes it work is because there is tension there, because like, and he also doesn't even do it perfectly, because like he like, even though what he does is crazy and badass and everything, he kind of like loses his composure immediately afterward.
Exactly.
So which to me helps him not come across as too perfect, because that would get boring quick. Because then we're doing Thundercats or something from the 80s where the good guys just always win.
Yeah,
you know?
It's like you say, he rises to the occasion and he braces for the impact, and then he just acts because that's who he is as a character. It's not like, oh, I can easily just kick this off and then return to Appa. No, it's just, okay, I've got to do something, do it, and then, oh crap, I didn't think about this. Wave arms and panic and fall back into Appa. And even then you see that it took it out of him. You know, he seems a bit knackered after that one shot. Everything's very well presented here on like the actual character motivations and actions and the consequences of those.
And that's what I always like.
Oh,
sorry, go ahead.
Well, that's what I like about action scenes is that when it actually shows character, those are usually when the best action. When it's basically a dialogue scene between 2 or 3 people, but with action, that's when it's always done the best.
How they do what they do and why they do it, all wrapped up neatly around the actual characters themselves, not the story. Although both can be done as well, as Avatar does frequently.
Mm-hmm. We can move on now. I mean, I was going to get into that topic myself, so it's cool.
Cool. So, sorry, but they breach through the blockade. Zhao moves to kind of apprehend Zuko and take him on board to question him, but then realizes, and I like the fact that it's kind of an afterthought. Like, oh wait, hang on, no, better idea. Let him pass, and we'll follow him. I mean, it's a transparent plan, as Ira points out almost immediately afterwards. But there are a lot of decisions in this episode that either both planned and as afterthoughts in response to failed plans that get brought up. That kind of fill the moments in between the action sequences that kind of flesh out the intellectual sides of the characters and the the way they're thinking in response to these high tension moments throughout. That helps kind of helps keep the pace controlled and measured and apportioned properly. That I really enjoyed.
But at the same time, it's also that he knows that Zuko would be desperate. So even though it's an obvious plan, it's like, well, everybody is on a timer here. Like, no one's going to be making the best plans they can at this point.
And who cares if he knows he's following him? What's Zuko going to do about it? It's not like there's a downside to that affects him in any great way.
So then we get to the Crescent Island, correct? If we got the sequencing of the
that's where it cuts to next. Or the island that Roku's dragon took me to, because as Aang described it.
Yeah, that's what I said. I don't know what it's called. Don't worry about me.
I like before we get to though, before we actually arrive, I like the transition of them flying through the air with Appa, the kind of the day cycle playing through, and Appa visibly getting tired. It sets up a key point that Appa is not this unlimited, you can coke forever kind of story MacGuffin. His tiredness will become a factor.
You can't take a horse like traveling, for an entire day.
And
you
on top of that,
you have to let it rest.
Well, especially through like a battle situation.
Well, yeah, of course, he was going at high speeds before then. But on top of that, it establishes the distance covered because which seems like a little thing. But if it were just a case of like, and one shot cuts here and then the next shot they arrive, the world feels so much smaller that way. This helps. Mitigate that without killing story time. They don't say and time passed 2 hours later or whatever. They just show that this is clearly time passing, and it's really nicely done. Will come up more later as a story point, especially in season 2.
On a more superficial level, I like the look of boredom on Aang's face when he's waiting to get there.
Yeah,
it's very cartoony. He looks like a turtle. Anyway,
yeah, I love that stuff about Avatar. That's so great.
Yeah, you said before about the expressions. But yeah, they arrive at the island. Appa is obviously tired. They acknowledge that fact, and quite adorably because Appa is like, conked out on his back. Comedic moment ensues. I love Sokka's reaction as well. I was talking to Momo. It's like that got a real chuckle out of me, in true Sokka fashion. I like that they didn't just immediately go straight to the temple, immediately cut to that bit. They have a moment where they acknowledge the fact that they've just been on this journey, even if Aang is so eager to get on ahead.
And when they meet the sages too, I like how Aang is like, "Oh hey, what's going on, guys? I'm the Avatar," because like all the other like temple people that he's been interacting with has been like, "Oh cool, the Avatar's here. We're like gonna worship you and everything." And then he would think so too, because this is like Roku's island or Roku's death place. So you would think they would be like, "Oh cool, the Avatar is back," but they're like, "Yeah, we know who you are," and like immediately attack him. And
the single line of "we know" and then immediately boom. It's like there was a lot of tension in that. Like you felt the kind of threat immediately ramp up, and it was very cool. Also brought to mind sorry.
Go ahead.
No,
I was just gonna say that the guy who said that we know, I really like his voice. Like he's got a cool, like intimidating voice. Everything he said, like even later on, he's got like a line that made me laugh out loud because he has like such a villain voice. But what he said sounds so ridiculous. He goes, it's the Avatar's lemur. Like he says it all like ominous or whatever, and it's just like what?
Oh,
but if you heard that out of context, yeah.
Backpedaling a bit. Small note. That reminded me. Very small moment, but it's a moment that kind of emphasizes just how detailed or how much attention to detail is spent in this series. But when they're hiding just on approach to the temple, Momo's ears are sticking out over the kind of ridge they're hiding behind. I love that Katara actually reaches out and flattens his ears down. Again, it emphasizes the fact that Momo is here, because Momo does tend to blend into the background a lot, even though he is actually quite present.
True.
Yeah. I like that moment. Anyway, sorry, moving on. Just had to point that out. But the sages attack and they're running through the temple, aren't they?
Yeah.
We meet Shayu, the friendly, dutiful
sage.
Yeah. The guy who
who said, like, I think he goes in and, well, that's a little bit later when he talks about his father and stuff like that, or his grandfather.
Yeah. To start with, they're just kind of running through the tunnels, and he heads them off, and they kind of fear him initially because obviously Fire Sage chasing them. Why wouldn't they? But then he befriends them at a dead end. We see kind of the eastern side of things again as well, as he kind of prostrates himself before them as like by way of apology and like, you know, I'm no threat. You know, I'm here to serve, kind of thing.
A particular gesture is sort of Fire Nation. Actually, they do that a lot.
Yeah,
like that's how Zuko approaches his father. That's actually how the Crown Prince bows to Roku, like upon realizing that his best friend is the Avatar. Like when that's announced at their birthday. Like I think it's like a Fire Nation gesture of deference or deference.
Yeah, the entire nation is suffused with a much greater amount of formality than the other cultures, just kind of intrinsically in their culture. It's it's a nice nod to that in this moment here, because we'll see it come up later on. I love the passageway as well, the mechanism on the wall. He kind of pulls the lantern out of the way and sort of fire bends a shot through to open the door.
Too. Even though, like in my head, I was like, "Wow, convenient they had this conversation right next to that." But at the same time, though, it is a nice detail. I like the way it was constructed.
Or I mean, there could be multiple ones.
Yeah, that's what I imagine.
Presumably, many staircases.
Presumably, there are multiple entrances to the same tunnels, basically. But I like the mechanism in particular. And then we cut away to Zuko and Iroh, I believe, right? Before we head into the tunnels?
Yeah, so it's very short scene about the trail, and then Zuko being smart is like, all right, well, we'll give him a trail to follow, and then like using the smoke screen to escape out of.
You see,
also,
sorry, you go first, Matt.
Okay, I was just gonna say it also kind of helps underscore that like Iroh's not just there to crack jokes. Like he's the one that sort of deduces why Zhao let Zuko in, because Zuko, being like a hot-headed teenager, didn't quite understand that. So I like that Iroh. I mean, we know that, but it helps remind us that anyway, like that he has like a purpose on this mission and that he has valuable insight to share with his nephew.
Yeah, and Zuko, while he didn't twig it in the moment, he's someone that could perceive the tactical plans outside of that, as is this, is this plan. I also appreciate that we see just the kind of versatility of the Fire Nation's technology, because that is a low-end Fire Nation ship they're on, but we've seen in this very episode, we've seen retractable catapult, additional boat that's just kept on the back for outside deployment. They have a lot of versatility in their technology, even in their lesser examples of it. You can kind of get why they have the power they do. Especially considering we've just seen the Navy as a whole, it portrayed pretty much for the first time in this episode with the blockade.
It's what differentiates their nation, like that. Those are the advances they made, is like industrial.
It's very cool. But yeah, Zuko heads off using the smoke trail to kind of hide his passage, to chase them in the actual direction that they need to go. But yeah, then we get the tunnel where we hear a bit more about Shayu's motivations. Again, the show taking the time to establish why the people in it are doing what they are doing, and why we should care. It's just an entire scene establishing that, the emotional and historical significance of this character to us.
And also the dynamics of like the villain characters, that while they are one set of a group, there's always going to be different kind of people within that group, which can sometimes get oversimplified in kids shows. But here you can get like, oh hey, not everybody is going to be bad because they're part of the bad people.
Yeah, the show's very good at that, outside of Ozai anyway, giving them layers.
I mean, Ozai has to be that. I feel like one of the people has to be Hitler, basically.
I was going to say that because it's already been sort of established that people in this world say it's not uncommon to live more than 100 years, for example. some of these guys, because they're pretty old, some of these guys might have been originally waiting for Aang when they were younger and had been subjugated by a comet-wielding Sozin. So, like, that's like, okay, I'm not going to mess with the Fire Lord. You know, like, they might have had it, like, beat into them pretty thoroughly 100 years back, you know, like, no. And Shayu maybe is, like, more of like a young idealist, sort of. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Right.
they were very personally affected by it, but he was spared that just from his age. You know, it was his grandfather that originally knew Roku. And yeah, I like that distinction actually. The fact that he was probably one of the few, potentially only members of the Sages that wasn't around at that time. It's obviously unconfirmed, but it's a interesting point to speculate on.
Yeah,
Kind
just
of the
stupid
innocence of youth.
fan theory of the day.
I like Shayu as well. He's presented as a The moment that stood out to me most was the moment when Aang thanks him, and you just see like a genuine like, oh, thank you, you know, like it was just he felt honored, and he realized that these simple acts can make a difference. You know, the Avatar has just thanked me for what I've done. You know, I'm fulfilling my duty as I should. It's a really nice moment, and it's Aang just being Aang. You know, he's like thanks for helping. You know, he's being genuine, and the moment comes across as that above all else. It's just genuine.
And the thing I like a lot is the Sokka, like, because, well, they get to the door and they're like, oh crap, we need like 5 firebenders to open this thing. And then Sokka's like, oh wait, I have an idea. And I love seeing the ingenuity of non-benders in this bender world. And he has this plan of like the fire, I don't know what is, like basically like a bomb, dynamite sack. I don't know what you would call those things.
I forgot what he called them exactly, but yeah, it was some sort of trick he learned from his dad. The most detail he went into about it.
But I also like that the show oftentimes, whenever they come up with a plan, even though it seems really ingenious, like, oh, that's really smart, and then they do it, it doesn't always pan out. Like, I liked how, and it happens several times in the show where their plans, like, you're like, oh, that's a good plan, and it stops, and then it's like, oh, well, there you go. What are they going to do now? But I like that the show doesn't make it so easy for them to, you know, get their obstacle.
I like the magic of it. It's like, no, this door knows. Like the door can tell bending, and not just like your little smoke screen there, Sokka. Like I enjoy that a lot.
Yeah, well, particularly considering it's such a spiritual sanctum. You know, this isn't just a standard mechanism. This is the Avatar's door.
Later, what we see is that it's a sustained fire blast. This is what it needs, not just like a quick thing. Because when the sages come, it's like.
But it could be conceived as either.
But it could be.
I do wonder though, like if you showed up with like 5 flamethrowers and just blasted it, I like to think that this door was still not open. Yeah, it's like it can tell like the spiritual side of the bending. You like.
I mean, it certainly can when the Avatar's active in the room, because Roku repels the firebenders later, who actively do that.
But what I like so much about that, the difficulty of plans, and when they do something that looks like it's smart but it doesn't work, is that they have to come up with an even better plan. So I like that Katara comes up with well, hey, it looks like we got in, you know, and they set up this like kind of a trap where they have like how did they do the shadow? Was it Momo who did the shadow effect?
Yeah,
underneath the door,
crept through the mechanism and was on the inside of the door. The thing I like about it most though is that whenever they have these stumbling blocks, the next part of the plan, or at least the unintended execution of the plan, is always woven into the tension of the episode. That they have the only way they could do it is if they let the enemy that they have to worry about get close, and it amps up the threat level, and it builds up tension.
To add to that, because of Sokka's like bombs, which was a good idea, but it failed. Like the bombs going off, they now know the sages are coming anyway because they heard that.
Yeah, so it's all like makes sense.
They had to do this. Yeah, they had to do this on the fly, which also. I feel like, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I forgot, but I feel like this is definitely the most useful in a singular episode that Momo's been so far. Like, points to Momo.
Later on, he gets a bit more active in these next few episodes.
I was gonna say, like, later on, we can come to that later, but I feel like he's sort of like the guy that calls their taxi so they can get out of here.
Yeah.
Like, he's the reason they survive. But anyway, we can move on.
Yeah, but the whole interaction, like, there's a lot of layers to this encounter really as they're approaching the door, because even though they manage to get the door open, they're immediately accosted by all of these escalating threats. Zhao appears and Zuko appears, all interweaving into different elements, and the character interactions on top of that as well.
Aang makes it into the chamber before Zhao shows up, right?
Yeah,
it's like he's more like Zuko is there. Yeah.
Zuko
is trying to get there.
Yeah, they manage to open the door. Zuko arrives, waylays Aang. Aang breaks out and manages to make his way in before the doors close. And then we have the interactions with all the different characters bouncing around outside the door as we have the inner sanctum. But yeah, what order do we want to go in there?
A little small thing too, because there's a very short shot of when Aang is running to the door. He looks at Katara and oh my God, Sokka first before he goes into the door, and it's kind of like bringing back what he had an issue with at the beginning of the episode. It's like, oh, I'm gonna put you guys in danger, so it's like showing that a little bit. It's like, oh, this is it in practice.
Yeah, it's his priority one, help his friends. It's only after they say go, get in the door, then he's like, oh, okay. And we see from his perspective as the kind of camera turns, then he's like, okay, well, I'll head this way then. And I like how the actual entrance of the sanctum, as Aang's going through the door, everything, even the way the music amps up on his approach to it, the entire moment, there's so much gravitas to it from start to the finish of this scene moving forward. There's this spiritual presence infused with almost every moment, and it's so wonderful to see. This scene stands out as like an Avatar classic for a reason, and that's a big contributor to it.
It was as awesome as I remembered it being. I really like Roku, the way they characterized him, because like when you look at him, you're not quite sure like is he going to be like this stern sort of mentor figure or whatever, but he's got like a Dumbledore vibe.
He's got a very severe but calming presence. Yeah. The entire moment, that scene though, is crafted beautifully. The way it cuts between it and the conversation outside, the actual the fact that he doesn't immediately appear as the doors open and Aang gets in, that has this quiet breathing moment to let us kind of, as the viewers, kind of mellow out a bit from the intensity of the action leading in. We get to see Aang kind of go, oh, why aren't you here? I need to speak to you. And it's just literally the delay of the sun not having quite reached the statue's head. But we get this moment to just take a, breathe out, appreciate the gravitas of this moment as Roku appears, and we get that beautiful music and visual.
I love the transition, they have with the clouds, where you have Aang and it switches with the clouds, and it's like, and then there's Roku there. Like it's really, really, it's easy to do those transitions in animation, but still, it's really nice when those kinds of things are implemented.
The effect is no less powerful for it, especially considering it's kind of the entire show's motif. The clouds are a big part of all of the design aesthetics.
Like earlier in the episode when they had the fire blast going through like the piece of the clouds, which is really nice.
Yeah. No, but what is there to talk about the scene? Where do you want to start?
I don't know. I mean, the point of this scene is that this is where like we've talked about like sort of that refusal of the call, like as being part of like the hero's journey. Well, I'm not exactly sure like what this term is, but this is like when we find out like what Aang's journey is going. This is where his journey starts to take shape, because prior to this, he's just kind of been traveling around the globe with like his friends, like kind of going sort of toward the North Pole. Now he has a mission.
He's finally properly met his mentor, and his mentor is giving him this quest because, in the hero's journey, you had this mentor who at one point could have been that one to, save the day or whatever. It's very similar to Obi-Wan in Star Wars, but now it's like, oh, hey, I'm too old for this, or I'm dead, so it's like, this is what you have to do. And then it kind of explaining what needs to be done.
And also, again, when we talk about sort of having a deadline, he's given a deadline. Like, you need to do this within a year, and like it's like
by summer's end.
Yeah, it's beautifully written. It's like you must master the elements by summer's end. Is like the way
it's like a fable. It's written like a fable or folklore.
There's an eloquence to it that it just adds so much drama to the moment.
You're not wrong at all. Like it's very, there's an eloquence to it, but there's something about the way they did it. I don't know if it's maybe the voice actor, the music they used, facial expressions with the animation, but what he's saying sounds entirely like unreasonable, but he still comes across as like charming and supportive the whole time. Like it's like mastering the elements takes forever, but you've got to do it within a couple of months. You can do it.
Yeah, it's like, I know you can do it, Aang, for you have done it before. As he kind of smiles, it's like I think it might be something to do with the sound treatment, because both voices, him and Aang, in this scene have a kind of reverberation overlay for them. Like they play it kind of twice and sync it up to make it just sound a little bit ethereal. And it, like you say, because this is quite a severe character for all his calm persona, and it kind of takes that edge off and makes him more immediately welcoming for us for our first introduction to him. And you're right. There's so much like I don't know. There's something there. There's a touch of something.
It actually is a year, even though right now like it's kind of vague and he seems like it's like shorter. In the next episode, like right at the beginning, Sokka says, you have until next summer to do it. So it does indicate that this does or should be taking place within the scope of a year rather than a few months. as it is. But it is the first time we do get the indication of Sozin's
Oh
comet.
yeah, no, I said that. I said that sort of flippantly. I was.
Oh,
making
as a
joke.
comedic thing. Like,
Yeah. I know. I know it's a year. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
The introduction
But
of Sozin's
you were
comet.
talking about Sozin's comet. Oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
sorry.
Go
Yeah,
ahead. You said the same.
the introduction of Sozin's comet as a ticking time bomb for the current scenario as well. Though I like that it also explains, or not really explains, but it points out the fact that the reason the Fire Nation had the impact they had at the start of the war was the fact that they had this Sozin comet powering them up. The reason the opening of the war, they kind of dominated the entire conflict, and then for 100 years they've had this random stalemate after that. I like that this explains that they had this initial boon that gave them that dramatic push, and now they have to wait for it again to finish the fight. It explains why there's been this 100-year wait outside of the fact that the Avatar story couldn't begin yet, so we had to wait for it. It helps set that.
It also explains why the Avatar is needed to check all the other forces, because there's these natural peaks and valleys that the other cultures hit for whatever reason, because of celestial reasons, because of the natural for example, when the full moon happens, waterbenders are on it. When it's when there's an eclipse, it can put the firebending powers off for a little while. You know what I mean? There's natural peaks and valleys with that, and that's why the Avatar. Any nation would be vulnerable at a certain point because of that kind of reason. The Avatar is there to be everyone's champion and everybody's sort of check as well.
Yeah, I like that.
And the following scene, as we'll get to in a minute, explains or demonstrates very clearly why he is that check, or she, why they are that very obvious deterrent.
They actually works at this point, yes.
Yeah. But yeah, the entire scene was perfectly done for me. And I like, again, how, because we haven't talked about it really, they cut between the little individual moments of exposition that Roku's giving, and the tension of the problem outside growing, where Zhao arrives, he sets up the 8, 9 including him, but 8 firebenders, prepped and ready to just blast Aang the second he comes out that door. It's it's building up this quiet tension in the back of our minds, even as we're getting this information overload, or not actual overload, but potentially it could have been an information overload. But they cut it and apportion it well, so that even the youngest kids can kind of get the flow of the moment properly. Each point is extenuated by it, because there are separate points in this conversation.
Yeah, the thing I like about that is that it's both a part of Zhao's sort of direct and not very well thought out manner to just set 9 people in front of a door and have everybody blast as soon as it opens, but at the same time, to be fair, you would expect that to get the job done reasonably, but it underscores the fact that nobody or hardly anybody during this time has any idea what the Avatar is capable of. So it's not just us, the audience, it's Zhao as well. He's completely unprepared for this.
They have no real appreciation for the sheer unbelievable power that these people wield. And that's another, it's another good way of the show underscoring just how powerful that we can expect the Avatar to be in the future, and why we should care about it.
Because I think
the irony... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I think it's pretty consistent, too, because Roku is a more fully realized Avatar versus... We'll eventually see with Aang later in book 3, even though he does channel the Avatar state, he still really didn't master 2 of the other elements at that point. So he's not doing Roku status stuff in that finale, but it's still powerful enough to take down Ozai.
Yeah, it's made clear in this moment that that even later on with the fully realized Avatar states that the avatars themselves, when they're not actually realizing their own personal images, they're still heavily bottlenecked by the fact that their wielder is, or I suppose for Vang's case, is more that usually them wielding him is so heavily inexperienced. We don't ever see a fully realized Avatar in their prime, really. Even in Korra,
I would say that
we see hints throughout.
That would kill kind of a series, because they can't take care of anything. That's. I'm not saying you were suggesting otherwise. I was just adding on to that. Yeah. But yeah, no, it's and the irony is that the only people with even a vague idea of what might be waiting behind that door are the Fire Sages, who aren't really a part of this Zhao's plan, because the main one is there's no telling how powerful the boy will become once he connects with Roku, and so that means they at least have a moderate idea of what a fully realized Avatar is capable of, or maybe even just Avatar state, because Zhao at this point has never seen that.
They've even seen a hint of it, really. Has he actually met the Avatar at this point?
No,
he hasn't met Aang, so he doesn't have no idea what's on the other side of that door. Outside of the fact that it's a young kid.
Ironically, the only Fire Nation people, aside from maybe some of the sages who might date back to prior to, Sozin's comet, the only people that have ever witnessed the Avatar in action is Zuko's Z Squad.
That's very true. Yeah. And they're the ones actually actively chasing after him, and the rest haven't even got an appreciation. All of this adds up to lead to the moment where Roku steps out, and I mean the insane build up of music, the spiritual presence.
Yeah, the music, like that was something I like because that song that sort of chant that plays, like that's like the Lion Turtles theme, like later on, like at the end of the series.
It's one of the big series themes that just very quietly play. You almost don't hear it played in the background underneath the kind of big blasts of It only plays during moments of serious Avatar battery. Yeah. And it's kind of almost an afterthought when the actual visuals they're showing you are so impressive by themselves. So the fact that all of it layers together and builds up this moment, on top of the fact this is the first time you're actually seeing real Avatar power, like this cements in your mind, like, okay, I can understand why these people basically control the balance of power in the world.
That's what Aang is supposed to do.
Yeah, it's like, oh, this is his job, right? Okay, I can see why the nations would worry about this guy, because I mean, Roku does just calmly raise one arm, no strain involved, brings up the volcano beneath them and sets off a nuke beneath their feet. It's like, okay, well, right, and this is just one element. It's a beautiful moment, like you say. That music is definitely one of my favorite pieces in the show.
Yeah, the sound treatment on the whole scene is my favorite thing, from like the sort of the Avatar theme. The sound of like all the swelling fire, or like when he hits the ground, like when he sort of sunders the floor, like that sort of sizzle, like noise and everything. I really like all that. Just the sound treatment is great.
They balance it really well as well. Nothing's kind of drowning out anything else. Everything's given just the right amount of attention, and the displays we're seeing as well. I'm in agreement with you. The music is definitely my favorite thing about the moment, but the visuals we're seeing as well. Like as all of these moments are happening, you've got a blast of fire that completely and precisely incinerates the chains around Katara, Sokka, and Zuko against and Chayu.
Yeah, but simultaneously knocks back the targets in front of them.
Yeah,
like that's
precisely.
That's like not natural. Like it takes like an Avatar level of control to do that. And I like the point that he saves Zuko, because I get the impression that it's Aang goes into the Avatar state many times, but this is one of the only times where he's like fully possessed by like the spirit of like a fully realized Avatar with like full control. So like Avatar Roku is making that decision, I feel like, just acting through Aang,
And it's an interesting point it brings up, because Roku is very clearly aware of the world around him, the present world, and even the distant past outside of his own lifespan. Because
I just realized, does he know that Zuko's like his great grandson or something?
I mean, it's possible. Anyway. I mean, he knows the war happened, even though that was after his death. He knows how it happened, and he knows, Ozai is the name of the current Fire Lord. He knows things about the present. So it brings to question just how aware any of the previous avatars are of the current state of the world at any given time. Whether it's because they're in the spirit world and consciously seeing it all happen in some way, or whether it's because they're consciously seeing through Aang's eyes, or I don't know. It's just.
No, I was just talking out loud because I was like the connection there was something. Like at first, I liked the moment when I watched it because of the benevolence of Roku, like taking mercy on like a villain of the show. But then I was like, oh yeah, they're related. But would he have done it if it was Azula in the same position? Would he have like saved her? I just wonder.
What I like too is that when he does stop his badassery and we see the sun setting, setting, and then the eyes go back to normal and he's just a regular statue and leaves. I like that it was the sun that was powering that a avatar that was a Fire Nation, person, and the fire or the sun is the Fire Nation or the Firebender's power source, and that's the thing that quells him at the end. I kind of like just that little piece, even though it's very small.
Well, like it also worked because he could only do it during the solstice. Like after at that point, it's like, okay, I've done what I need to do. Like I'm done now, hanging up my gloves until next year.
Until next solstice.
You just can't come out and save Aang like that all the time.
Precisely. It's not this. It's not a Deus Ex Machina. It's very much tied to the setting, and also it isn't going to ruin the tension moving forward because it's not something that can just happen at any point.
Right.
Yeah, and I like as well the way it happens as the sun sets. His kind of hands lower, almost with the line of the light itself, and he like takes that firebender breath and is okay, and then fades back into Aang.
And then just
and the
being at
smoke
peace,
as well.
A master should always be like that. After they defeat a foe, it shouldn't be about like, oh yeah, I just like did that. It's like, no, like,
Fist bumping
thing,
Roku.
you know, let me put that power away. You know, I can't like have it just always out and about.
Yeah, definitely. It's again, everything's about that presence and that kind of that weight to the moment. You know, you feel the gravitas of the scene on every level. The actions taken, the decisions made, the music treatment applied. You know, everything. It's perfect. It really is one of those standout moments that everyone thinks of when they watch this show.
Agreed.
Mm.
And then we go to where the sages are taken to Zhao's ship, and they're all claimed as guilty, even though they're like, no, it was just Xiaoyu who helped them out.
Like, save it. I don't care. You're all going to the Fire Lord.
But then it also makes me wonder, like, do we ever see the sages again?
I'm
if we
not
don't,
sure.
I'm going to assume they died.
Well, of course, yeah. I just assumed they were all incinerated. Unfortunately, well, Xiaoyu, unfortunately. Yeah.
Well, they don't do that to everyone. Maybe they just went to like the Boiling Rock or something. They throw a lot of people in prison.
They do, yeah. But I feel like this particular level of transgression in Ozai's mind would be
Okay,
I mean,
if you want him, if you want him to be dead, he's dead. I was just trying to see the glass half full there, but
fair enough. But yeah, I just feel like this particular transgression, you know. Oh, so you just uncapped the bottle on literally the one thing that can stop me in a year's time. Thanks. Roku's really what I needed walking around the world.
I wanted to I think maybe we skipped over that, and it's so not important. I just like the moment because they established that Momo stole one of their hats earlier in the episode. Yeah. When he came flying back to like save the day, he was still wearing it. I thought that was funny.
Yeah, I did as well. The Momo's light kind of background presence starts to bleed into the episode's plot and conversation interactions a lot more moving forward from this point, at least for a short while. And
I wonder if between animators they actually like follow certain characters like that and goes like, you know what, I want to keep that, and then like they talk to like the directors and go like, can we like keep him with the hat or something? Like I feel like I don't know if that's like something that all the directors are looking at all these pieces, or if the animators have like say in some of these things.
It'd be interesting to see whether they kind of get given that, right, you're in charge of this person's continuity, you're in charge of this person's. It would make sense to do it like that if they have enough people on the team.
That shows the power of collaborative efforts when you're making
something.
Yeah, everyone having their own little portion of responsibility to track. Yeah, no, it's really cool. But yeah, Appa, they fly away on Appa. In one of the more dramatic
like every
moments.
episode, but this one's a little bit more special.
It's
because it's exceedingly beautiful, because there's no like usually at the end of episode they talk about this is what we learned, this is what we're gonna do next kind of thing, but this one's just a completely quiet moment, nice silhouette on the moon. And also you just get like, dude, like he just got this big piece of information. He's like, oh crap, I only have a year to do this. Oh crap, so in the comments gonna make them uber powerful. Oh crap, I'm only 12 years old, guys. Like, I have nobody here to help me.
We talk about the hero's journey and his kind of the refusal of the call. This is the moment where the call is no longer optional. If you don't do this, the world ends, basically. So, this weight is just piled on top of him, and it's the two's there for him in the moment.
The first glimpse that we or Aang get of like Fire Lord Ozai, and like Roku chose to show him like breathing fire.
Yeah.
It's like I'm 12. It's like, but again, and the nice thing about all that is, unlike something like Harry Potter, which I love, but it's like, why aren't the teachers helping? Or like, where are they? Like, no one else can do this, even though he's a kid. Like, he's the Avatar, and like you can't change that rule with the setting. Like, nobody can just like steal that power from him or do it for him. Like, I love that, because even though he's a kid, it makes sense for him to be in the position he's in, and to me, that's relatively rare with series like this.
Even if they really try hard, there's usually no way they can actually make it make actual sense without people just going, yeah, okay, we acknowledge the fact that we have to look past this part. Here it fits the actual lore of the setting. They've put it into the actual the way the world works. He's the Avatar. This is just how things are done. And it makes sense for why it's done this way, because of what we've just seen. This same little kid effectively just blew up an island.
Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, no, it's a beautiful moment. Like the framing of the moon behind silhouetting them on the Appa's back. The fact that the other two don't say anything, like you say as well. It's not just Aang not saying anything. It's both of them. It's kind of they're there. They put their hands on his shoulder and they're just there for him in this moment, helping him, bear this insane burden that he's just had put upon him. It's a beautiful end.
Agreed. So I guess we've wrapped up our thoughts on Winter Solstice Part 2, Avatar Roku.
Indeed.
We'll see you guys next week with, what is it, Waterbending Scroll?
Waterbending Scroll,
which I find is a fun episode.
It's a good episode. We'll talk to you guys next week. I'm ready for I still don't have an outro.
Right. Great Jedi 91. See you guys later.
That's Tom Bandele. Remember, be water, my friends.
Goodbye.